David, do you remember when you were told that, we're creating more jobs and having more wealth being created than ever before in the first few months, if not years of presidencies since a
Yeah.
certain date on a timeline? Okay, I'm just making
Yeah,
sure.
the economy is booming. That's the topic today. The
Yeah,
booming
growth
economy.
recession. The growth recession. There's no recession coming. Holy fuck, it's recession. How to grow wealth during a recession. What happens
Yeah.
if a recession becomes a depression?
Yeah, all these things. But really, the economy is booming. So the article that we're going to read today is record car sales and home sales. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Car repossessions and home foreclosures are rising, and some Americans are living on a financial cliff. Oh, no. Oh, that's weird. I expected the booming economy to be the story of the day. This is on notably right-leaning news media, though, NBC, so maybe that's why. They must be against the Bidens.
Especially Hunter.
A growing number of Americans have found themselves strapped for cash and looking for financial relief as the U.S. economy slows down. It slowed down, I don't know, 4 years ago? How long ago did it slow down? COVID. And it hasn't recovered since, despite what Biden's trying to claim.
Well, it's just slow down, David.
Oh, just slow down.
It's funny they use the term slow down as if they can just make it speed up.
Interesting that they start such a statistical, analytical thing with anecdotal note. Karen Lesage needs her car. A 57-year-old single mother living in East Hartford, Connecticut.
Where's your husband?
She's single.
I'm sure by choice, David.
Sure, definitely.
Wonder if he has a car.
Lesage, why does she only have one car? How come she doesn't have two cars? Lesage needs to drive herself to medical appointments for injuries on her legs, so that's why she doesn't have a husband anymore. And pick up her teenage daughter, who often suffers from seizures from school.
I'm glad I started this article this way.
I love that they picked the most, like, this is the thing that could more pull on anybody's heartstrings than anything else they could find.
Well, I'm sure if they were a person of color, David.
Probably not. Her name's Karen Lesage. I have to go pick her up, Lesage says. Without the vehicle, she adds, I wouldn't be able to do that. Don't get me wrong. This is sad.
I've also been there. I've also had one car for two people. I've had no cars. I've totaled both cars.
Was that because you were controlling and emotionally controlling and abusive?
David, do you remember the day I got fired from my career job and totaled my car in the same day?
Yeah.
That's a true story. It's really sad because you can really feel empathy for these people.
Sure. Yeah, everybody's been through. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Everybody has not been through tough times. That's kind of unfortunate, I think. I think most people should have to go through at least one severe struggle in their life. Makes you stronger. Last year, Lesage was told her car was at risk of repossession after she fell behind on payments. For me, every penny counts, and just to lose a couple of cents on gas is devastating sometimes. I am not going to come on here and victim blame, right? But one of the things you're always told financially is there's the first and foremost, you always have to make sure you have a roof over your head. That has to be priority. Number two, if you need a car, you have to find a way to pay for it. I don't know her situation, obviously, but I'm just saying, did she have a cell phone? Did she have cable? I'm not being a dick, but
does she smoke cigarettes?
Right. Seriously, how much could you have done to change the story?
What does she do for work? Does she have a skill or has some kind of marketable profession, or can she just like watch over an easy scan at a Tops?
Lesage is among a growing number of Americans who have found themselves confronting financial hardship as the U.S. economy has slowed. On Thursday, the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reported gross domestic product fell to 1.1% in the first quarter, the lowest reading in 9 months. The GDP is the value of the final goods and services produced in the country and a strong indicator of how healthy the U.S. economy is. Now, when people say the term growth recession, keep in mind with this growth recession. What they're saying is the economy is still growing. In theory, it's at 1.1%, but it's not growing enough. So that's
because you need a 3% growth, David.
Right.
Correct?
Right. That's the general baseline. So 1.1% it's a third of what you really want from a good economy, and really 3% isn't like a great booming economy, but it's like it's a
You're
pretty
not
good
going
economy.
backwards,
Right? It's a pretty decent economy. 1.1% is not good, especially when you have 8% inflation or whatever it is now. Strapped for cash. The slowdown is starting to show up. Oh, it's just starting to. According to a recent survey from Bankrate, 49%, half, of U.S. adults have less savings compared to a year ago. That means their savings are going somewhere. 10% of those surveyed said they had no savings at all. The upshot: the most disastrous outcomes for U.S. households, like auto repossessions and home foreclosures, have begun to climb. As a result of the expiration of government stimulus. Interesting.
Was that the only reason?
and current economic headwinds, right?
Oh.
We have seen delinquencies ticking up in this space over the last several months. Keep in mind what this sentence is saying, this paragraph.
They didn't have enough socialism, David?
As a result of the expiration of government stimulus, meaning the government stimulus was the only thing keeping the economy strong.
Sounds like what they're insinuating.
Which is why when it goes away, people can't afford their cars and their homes, which is why the inflation rate is so high. Because they falsely pumped the economy with money.
To make it look like we weren't in a recession or a depression, David.
Yes, and what a strange time to start showing up on the scale with election time coming.
That's weird.
I'm sure the next president will have a recession.
Yeah, or I'm sure they'll just be able to fire up the printing press, David, and just balance this out.
Well, you got to do something, you know. Fitch data shows U.S. auto loan delinquencies among subprime borrowers have just returned to pre-pandemic levels from record low set in summer of 2021. Meanwhile, home foreclosure filings have begun to surge. Property analytics company U.S. foreclosure filings totaled 95,712 in the first quarter of 23. Holy shit. That's 6% higher than the previous quarter and 22% higher than a year ago. Those are big numbers. March alone saw 36,617 U.S. properties in foreclosure, a 20% increase compared to February and 10% higher than a year ago. It was the 23rd consecutive month with year-over-year increase in foreclosures. Holy shit. I don't know what that normally looks like, but that's absurd. Every month for 23 months, more houses foreclosed than the last month. That is ridiculous. That is not the sign of a growth recession. That's the sign of a bad, slumping economy.
Well, David, I'm sure they'll just, have a rent moratorium,
a moratorium, a mortgage moratorium.
Yeah,
This is the problem too.
And did Biden just this week come out and say that if you have a good FICO score, you have to pay for people that don't have a good FICO score?
Well, he didn't necessarily say that, but yes, that's the policy.
All right. Just wondering why these things are seen together, David.
This economy is bad, and it could get dangerously worse. We have, I said this to you, Ryan, but we have several bubbles right now. I've said this in the past. Basically, it all boils down to one thing, though, and I can define it as the COVID bubble. Because COVID changed everything. When the government started pumping falsely into the economy, it changed a lot. So now we have things like people who can't afford their cars that were too expensive for them. People can't afford their houses that had falsely low rates. People are making more money than they really should be making, all because of COVID and how the government handled COVID by shutting everything down and then just pumping the economy full of fake money.
Yeah, or giving businesses $1 million to do whatever they wanted with.
Right.
So they're going to hire people at whatever wage to get them possibly in the door.
Well, and you had to, and I ran into this many times, but you had to basically tremendously overpay the person to incentivize them to come to work for money.
It's weird
because they were getting paid to stay home,
and then
they were getting paid well to stay home, not just like normal welfare, right? Whereas like you're not doing well if you're on welfare. I get it, and I'm not. I think there's a lot of things you could do to change welfare, but these people were making almost as much as they were making working. So why the hell would they go to work? So there was only one way to get them to work. You had to pay them way more. There's a salary bubble
the cost
in this
of
country.
goods.
And exactly. That's so now you've inflated the economy with fake money. People are making more money than they really should be, so they're not spending it wisely. And we have shortages. So that's how you get 8, 9, 10% inflation, which really, let's be honest, Ryan, that 8, 9, 10% isn't the real number. You could double it, would be my opinion.
Yeah.
In an emailed statement, Adam CEO Rob Barber noted some of the increase in foreclosure activity can be explained by lenders working through a backlog that had built up while the pandemic-era federal foreclosure moratorium, was in place.
This sounds like when they got This sounds like they got a bunch of votes overnight. Hey, look at the dip in the graph, Dave. It just changes analytics.
This looks like like
when I went to sleep on election night and woke up.
Not that there's anything wrong with that YouTube World Health Organization.
Holy, yeah, we just stopped foreclosures. Yeah, well, it's been on the rise for 2 straight years every month. It's backlog, though.
Holy shit. By that point, he had estimated 2 million homeowners had fallen behind on their home loans, and amid job losses, that's weird, and other hardships brought on by the pandemic. Overall, Barber said the increase since then hasn't been nearly as severe as some economists and industry experts expected. Many homeowners benefited from strong pandemic-era economic rebound, one that included a year-long home buying spree during a period of low interest rates. That's bad. That's not benefiting. That's bad. That's why people are foreclosing at high rates. That's why you had 23 months of consecutive foreclosures.
And then when they go to sell the house, it's, because they owe $300,000 on it, it's a $150,000 house because the market was oversaturated with people dumping their houses for crazy high because everybody was there was 7 people for every 1 house that wanted to buy it, so they could just sell it, right? Seller's market, everybody. And now that those people have that mortgage that they're locked in with, that they can't afford the payments of it, like
this guy can't be an economic expert by any means. I'd love to have John on to read this.
Dave, this was written by a computer.
This is ridiculous. This was written by a Biden lackey. Here's how I know this. Ready? One that included year-long home buying spree during a period of low interest rates. He said, unemployment also remains at historic lows. The relative job stability has allowed many delinquent homeowners to catch up on mortgage payments. If they're catching up on mortgage payments, why are the home foreclosures 23 months in a row consecutive, more than the previous month?
Not to mention they haven't said anything about cars yet, even though cars were on this list as well.
Shit.
Car repossessions are on the way up. Well, everybody's paying for their house, yeah, because they got to live somewhere. You can't live in your car with your family. It's weird.
As we said, 2 things you got to keep over your head: a home, a roof, and wheels on the ground.
It's sad, man. This is really actually sad. This shows how little people understood about how much the government could lie to you and what it does to you. Like, this is when you don't know civics. And Dave and I aren't masters of this or fucking philosophers or political science majors. We're probably the people least qualified other than to have common sense and to be on this earth long enough to know a couple things and to know stories from people and friends and our family. And I knew this would happen. Not to every little metric like, oh, homes are going to be this and this. But when you listen to smart people, Patrick, Bet, David, and other people, they said this was going to happen.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, we could have told you this, and we did tell you this. We didn't know specifically. I didn't come on the show specifically and say, oh, I bet for 23 months in a row we're going to have record number of home foreclosures. We certainly didn't say that, but we said, listen, this economy is fake. It's not doing as well as it did. We did a whole episode on it. We've done episodes on it.
Dude,
this is a fake economy.
Dude, they're building in Depew here in Lancaster. They're building like crazy amounts of like 6 floor residential buildings that house like 110 people. They're going to be like $1,200 for a 2-bedroom. Like, who's affording these houses? That's a mortgage. Who's affording these houses just for rent? They're apartment buildings, 6 floors, 10 on each floor. You know what I mean? Like 100 something units. Who's affording these? If we can't even afford mortgages.
Comparably, how much is the house?
Well, exactly. But that's like, people can't pay their house.
Well, they got to go somewhere, Ryan.
Well, yeah, what? They got to go to an apartment for rent and still got to pay mortgage? Part of the mortgage? You can't. What if they, once again, what if they're upside down on the house? They're going to claim bankruptcy on the difference?
As home prices...
People really thought that the government was going to help you through this. It's sad.
People still think they
How do you not vote these people out, man?
As home prices have skyrocketed over the past couple of years, homeowners' equity has increased. Something Barber said has provided an incentive for delinquent homeowners to find a way to get back up to date on their home loans. Okay.
What? Because it's worth more. You're going to pay.
Yeah, where you're just going to.
This is like the whole idea that if you pay somebody more money to care, that they'll do better work. When in reality, it's like how you do the small things is how you do everything.
Regardless of what your value on your house is, paying it off is going to help you on your home equity. That's what equity is.
That's being not upside down, correct, David? For those who with the economics degree on YouTube.
So you see this a lot in the automotive dealer, but someone will come in and they're going to trade in on a new car, and their car is worth $15,000 and they owe $23,000 on it. They're upside down in their payments. They don't have equity. Now, once in a while, you see someone come in and they go to trade in a new car, and their car is paid off and their car is worth $10,000. That means they have $10,000 in equity. That means that $10,000 is basically free money for them. So that's the only way to do that, though, is by paying it off. He noted, is it supposed to be ATTOM? Because up here they just said atom, and it was all lowercase, and here it's all uppercase.
I'm sure the AI just had an off day, David.
Whatever. I'm not an editor. He noted ATTOM data shows 94% of homeowners with mortgages had at least some equity built up in their properties in the fourth quarter of last year, with nearly half being equity rich, meaning they owed less than half of what their properties were worth. More income, more equity, and lower payments set the stage for a more modest rise in foreclosures than predicted. The outlook for the rest of the year remains murky, he said, given the changing housing market, higher mortgage interest rates, and inflation. It's unlikely the foreclosure filings will keep rising, but nothing like what we saw back in the bubble burst of 2008, meaning they don't think this is going to be like the housing crisis in 2008. I might not necessarily disagree, but what we're going to see is going to be tragic for a lot of people. Rick Burrows, 61, from St. Charles, Missouri, was about $23,000 away from paying off his loan when his lender began the foreclosure process on his house. How do you let that happen? Again, not to be victim blaming, but how the hell can you be so close to paying off your house and get foreclosed on? That's absurd. Burroughs lives alone in his...
Well, David, maybe he lost his job because the government told everybody to lock down for something that could be killed with the
they didn't. I don't know if you saw recently, but Fauci says nobody forced... Trudeau said in Canada... No, Fauci said the same thing. That nobody mandated vaccinations. We don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You didn't see that? Should I find this? Let me see if I can find this. Trudeau.
I mean this in the most peaceful way possible, but that guy needs to get punched in the face.
Yeah, figuratively. We're physically, figuratively.
How do you?
No.
All right, maybe you didn't force people to get vaccines. You just took their bank accounts.
No, they just what did he say? Incentivized them or something. Let's see if I can find this.
Spent millions of dollars of propaganda that could persuade our neighbors to victim shame us into getting a fucking shot from... Do you know there was 20 billionaires made during the pandemic thing, all in big pharma? Yeah, we're in the weeds now with this one.
Oh man, I have to find this though because it was so...
incentivized. You mean after you gave people millions of dollars, you told them what they could and couldn't do with their private business? And Walmart and Verizon and Amazon, Trudeau say he didn't force anyone to get vaccinated. All the incentives were there to encourage Canadians.
Is there a video of this?
Yeah, they encouraged the Jews into training.
Here we go.
Misinformation and disinformation is carrying people to believe things that are untrue. And therefore, while not forcing anyone to get vaccinated, the bottom line, proof of vaccination will be required by no later than the end of this month for all federal employees. And by mid-November,
this is him forcing people.
Enforcement measures in place will make sure that everyone is vaccinated.
Yeah, but what he was saying was they didn't force anyone. And then they cut to the clip there of when he actually literally forced people.
It's literally a ministry of truth.
That's the cool thing about being on camera, as long as they don't make the clips disappear. We got the evidence. And Fauci said a very similar thing, that there was no forced vaccinations.
Dr. Paul, you're mistaken.
You're certainly shutting down the economy. Rick Burroughs, 61, if he was still working, I'm assuming he wasn't retired.
David, first of all, how are they going to say this isn't going to be as bad as the 2008 Great Recession when we had a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic? It kind of sounds like they're probably like equal caliber when it comes to economic impact. Locking the whole world down is not what happened in 2008. It was people who had houses they couldn't afford, and the banks kept incentivizing the lending. The banks were incentivized by the federal government to lend to people that couldn't afford the house.
No, Ryan, they get into it. It wasn't because he was forced out of his job. It's because he got COVID. He contracted COVID-19 and spent around 7 weeks on oxygen.
Well, yeah. You should have took ivermectin like Joe Rogan told you, Dr. Joe Rogan.
He certainly must have not been wearing a mask, Ryan.
Well, David, if he just got his 4 vaccines, he would have been fine.
Here we go. A recession comes into view. It's already here, just like World War III, just like the Civil War. It's already here. Already in a recession, just nobody wants to talk about it.
This is unreal. Like, remember growth recession? Was it like...
Jesus. Fitch economists expect a mild recession later this year, Rose said. Even as analytics anticipate unemployment to stay relatively low. They keep going back to this unemployment figure.
People aren't even looking for work. I heard a podcast that was like 1/3 of men aren't even looking for work.
Well, why would they, Ryan?
Well, you know.
First of all, they're not men. Not to be a dick, but, you know.
Are you talking like the Dylan guys?
I'm talking about, we'll talk about Dylan Mulvaney tomorrow. I'm talking that men have an instinctive, biological, it's just inside of you to want to produce and provide, and it's from hunters and gatherers, Ryan. It's from all the way back then.
David, stop it. You are describing the toxic G mindset. That's
sorry. Men like to wear skirts and drink Bud Light. A recession comes into view. Fitch economists expect a mild recession. The expectation is that deterioration in credit quality will continue. In January, Taquetta Crowley, 43, lost her home in Hampton, Connecticut to foreclosures. She had fallen into a predatory loan. Oh, that's weird. And when the pandemic hit, she was left with no means to pay her mortgage. Sounds
like exactly like 2008.
It's going to be nothing like 2008. To be clear, Ryan, here's the thing with predatory loans. People still need to somewhat take responsibility. People should know what they can afford comfortably. There's a general figure that goes out. Is it 25% of your gross income a month should be the cap of what you spend on your housing? I think 25% is the figure. That's the max. That's the most. So, and gross income, gross. So if your salary and you make $50,000 a year, it's not 25% of 50,000. It's after taxes.
Taxes are things I pay to live in society, David.
Which means you're taking home, whatever, 43,000. which means your housing shouldn't be 25% of that.
Yeah, I've heard 30 as well, like up to 30, like if you really
Yeah, yeah, I yeah, maybe. I think 25 should be your cap.
Yeah, well, yeah,
that should be the max. Really,
yeah.
you should shoot for as low as humanly possible.
Yeah, and if you can't get another job, get 2 jobs, get 4 jobs.
Figure something out. Yeah, don't just bury yourself in a
Start
home
an
you can't afford.
OnlyFans.
Crowley now lives with her sister. I'm literally living off the charity of other people. That's how I'm existing. She hopes people. Do you see this too? This is a little shame. I think that's a good quality for people to have. I had so many investors. I had so many wholesalers. I had at least 3 scammers who came into my house and treated me like absolute trash. But I was in the way of them making money, who didn't allow me to maintain my dignity for what it was. I was about to lose. In retrospect, she wishes she had known that there were other options available.
She didn't use her smartphone to look at them.
No, she only learned after.
It's funny. I haven't heard one of these one of the people's job titles yet. What they do if they have student loan debt, if they smoke and drink every week.
No, because if you have student loan debt, you just don't pay it.
Honestly, why would you pay it? Like, I'm not.
Well, what are they going to do? Repossess your
education?
See, and people talk about why the interest rates are so high. That's because there's no skin in the game. Like with the
are you saying education is not real, David?
No. What it's saying it's a physical thing they can't take from you.
I know. I was
so with a house and with a car, you can have a lower interest because if you don't pay it, they can do things like foreclose on your home and take the house back and then resell it and make some money back on the deal. With an education, if you don't pay it off, what are they going to take?
Well, David, when Elon Musk drops Neuralink, they'll just be able to repossess that thing, and then they can get your education at the same time. So I guess it's...
See, Elon Musk just helping the world. Elon Musk just wanted to lower student loan interest rates, that's all.
Yeah, and blow rockets up on a launch pad and say it's a success.
Oh, the media's loved that.
I love it. It looked awesome. Like, how often do you see stuff blow up like that?
I guess to put a bow on it, Ryan, the economy is fucking tanking. It's horrible. It's been horrible since COVID hit. Luckily
for us, David, war makes good time because we're about to be in a civil war, a world war, and a depressive recession culture war. So I'm looking forward to cover it. Dave Ryan, December 1773. Catch us Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Dave and I will be there. As always, David, I appreciate you for your time. I'll see everybody later.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Be sure to watch on Rumble because tomorrow's episode surely we're going to be off of YouTube. Thanks, everyone.